All right, let's welcome into Straight Fire somebody brand new, never spoken to her before, but she's kind of a big deal in sports media, specifically gambling from Boston, unfortunately. Claudia Bellofatto, a great Italian name. Claudia, how you doing?
I'm good, Jason. You got to stop with the Boston hate,
Yeah, I,
okay?
I
I
just
don't like New York either, but I don't throw it in your face. I can if I want to.
So Claudia was like, "Oh, yeah, I could do the podcast." This was last week, and then she's like, "Oh, wait, I've got to do this David Ortiz event." She's like a huge deal in the
Stop.
Boston area. I don't really know much about your background. It's weird. Obviously, you're on social media. Everybody is, but like, there isn't a lot about you out there. I just want to know what like got you into sports media. Like, what's your origin story, if you will, with getting to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Jason, I grew up with all girls in the house. I have a little brother, but he came a while after us, and we grew up playing sports, watching sports. My sisters were big tomboys, and I always liked being on camera. There's videos of me when I was way younger, pretending to be a news reporter, on my dad's video camera. So my mom had the idea when I was applying to colleges. I wanted to become a nurse because I wanted to help people and do something good for the world. And now I report on sports for a living. But maybe it helps some people. But my mom said, I think you'd be really good doing some sort of journalism. So I applied to Newhouse. I got into Newhouse, and my parents said, you don't have a choice. I wanted to go to U Miami. I was like, I
Oh,
want to go somewhere where it's warm because I grew up in
yeah.
New England and I hate the snow and I hate the cold. Got into Newhouse, so went to school in upstate central New York. Obviously, an amazing program there and such a good
Mm.
network. And people who I work with now, Drew Carter, the voice of the Celtics now, he was one of my
Yeah.
best friends in school. It was me, him, and then Ian Eagle's son, Noah. So us
Jeez.
three were in the class, and then we all graduate. Noah's the voice of the Clippers. Drew, already on Sports Center a few years in. He's working the Celtics gig, and I think my big question was how can I sort of find my niche in this industry, because everybody wants to be a sideline reporter coming out of college. Everybody wants to be on ESPN, Sports Center. So I figured I had to get my feet wet, and the first gig out of school was minor league baseball, baby. Short A, short season, single A baseball in upstate New York. And we were the worst team in baseball, but I loved it still. Long days. I was sweating my butt off every single day,
Mm.
extra innings. And I realized if I still love this, it's probably my path. And long story short, got into news because COVID hit and I didn't have a
Oh.
choice. My first gig was out in Gainesville. I was excited to cover the Gators. COVID hit. So every day I was covering COVID deaths, and, political election was around there. So it was not what I wanted. I knew my passion was back in sports. So gambling fell in my lap, fantasy and gambling, because everybody now, the market was
Mm.
super saturated. Everybody was looking for a sports gig because sports had gone away. And I fell in love with fantasy. I fell in love with gambling. I found people online who knew what they were talking about, asked them questions, and before you know it, I was working for some small online shows, and then Vegas calls me up, MLB Network calls me up. I worked for MLB Network for 4 years. I moved out to Vegas, worked for a sports book.
Wow.
And then Boston, where I'm from, called me up and said, hey, we want to launch a betting show. And so I came. We launched the first betting show in Mass. And now CBS Sports, NBC Boston, and sort of took a role from there. But everything, betting and fantasy wise was
Hmm.
because I was in a weird situation, but I'm so glad I took that path.
So was that Boston show with Sammy P by any chance?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yes.
know
Okay.
Sammy?
So that's when I
I'm
first heard
sorry
about
if you
you.
know
Yeah, yeah,
Sammy.
yeah. Yeah. So he was doing stuff digitally at Fox and they kind of wrote
Yeah,
me in and that's how I met him. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm doing stuff in Boston." And then
yeah.
I watched and it was with you and him and I think one other person. Um
Travis, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sammy's the
yeah.
best. He's
Yeah,
a
and
sharp
I was
guy. He's
just
a lot of
like,
fun.
wow. So Boston, I'm assuming, is a big gambling hub, Northeast gambling. And I'm just curious, like how did that go at the beginning? Because people are, I don't want to use the word losery, but if you give out picks on air, how did you miss that? You're an idiot.
Oh yeah,
Like how did that
yeah.
go? Because that's different from news and like minor league baseball.
Yeah, it's definitely you got to have thick skin, and I'm grateful that I'm from. I think we could call it all of the East Coast, but Boston in particular, because we call them massholes. People
Yes.
are not nice, even if you go 5-2, they're only going to talk about the two
Yeah.
losses that you had, and I think I just knew that going into it. I'm really data driven, and I make sure that everything I say is backed up by facts. And, I'll watch the game and I'll give my opinion on something, but if I can find a number that supports it, I'm going to do that. So I know if somebody says, how did you miss that? I'm not pulling these picks out of thin air, people.
Right.
I'm watching the games, I'm watching the tape, I'm looking at the numbers. So I think it was just that mindset I had going into it. That was a dream job for me to, land Nesson at the age that I did, just a few years into doing TV. So I was just grateful for the opportunity. And, as they say, put your head down and push forward, and know the mass holes are always going to be there. So
Yeah, yeah. So obviously you got to be pretty smart in high school to get into Syracuse. So I'm assuming when you say analytically driven, like you've seen some of your competition quotes, in air quotes,
yeah.
in the industry, right? And like not everybody's, shall we say, data driven and went to a good school and is that smart. At what point are you starting to like see, like, are the girls friendly to you in this space?
Yeah, I will say, in terms of being friendly to each other, I think for the most part, in my experience, we're all supportive. It is tough though, sometimes when you see it's the age of social media. I don't really,
Right.
blame the girls out there who are
Right.
getting thousands probably of dollars through social media and all of this insane engagement, because maybe they're dressed a certain way, or they started doing something that people like, and they're just
Go ahead.
having to
Continue.
give out
Yeah.
pic. Yeah, I'm not going to go to you. I'm
No,
not going to go there.
we had one of those on the show, and she explained it well. And listen, it's not bad.
She's
She's
taking
smart.
advantage of the market, right? Like,
Right.
as you should. In my position, and I'm all, I support those women. I think that it's great. Do your thing if that's your brand. But my brand really has always been data driven. And I'm very me, the way I'm talking to you now, the way I talk to people out at the bar, we're talking about sports. That's how I'm going to be on TV, and so that's just my brand. And I think all the power to them. But sure, it's frustrating sometimes when you see people get gigs over yours, and you think like, man, I feel like that would have been a better fit for me. But that's just how this industry goes. You know that just as well as I do, and anybody else.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe the higher ups do know it's a better fit for one person over the other. But again, I'll never really change my brand. I get that push sometimes from agents and managers. They're
Oh,
like,
really?
you should try this on social media, or you should do this. And I'm like, I really respect and appreciate your opinion, but I'm probably just going to keep doing what I do.
Yeah. What did your like friends and family say when you're like, oh, I'm on a show talking about sports gambling? Were they like, what are you doing? Like,
One of my Italian uncles came up
oh,
at my grandmother's funeral, actually, and he pulled out a wad of cash and he goes, so who we betting tonight? He's like,
wow.
you got this from me, right? And I was like, I actually didn't really know where I got it, because my parents never have bet in their life. But apparently my uncle did it pretty heavily. So he loved it. All my extended family loved it. My parents at first were definitely concerned.
Mhm.
They said, we just paid, and thanks, mom and dad, you paid for my whole college. Love you for that. They
Yeah.
paid how much money to send you to the new house? And now you're going to do betting for a living. But I think once they saw it grow, and they saw me, on Nesson, the Red Sox
Mhm.
and the Bruins, covering these teams we all grew up watching, they could tell their friends to go watch me on TV. I think they understood why I took that path. But to anybody, like, Newhouse won't ask me to come speak on a panel, but they'll ask Drew and they'll ask Noah, because
Right. Yeah.
they're covering the Celtics and the Clippers, and that's fine. But I do get a lot of college students reaching out saying betting seems like a really cool
Mhm.
path to take if I don't want to do traditional sports. And I'm so happy to talk to them about that, because
Is
it is.
that
It's a lot of
men or
fun.
women?
Both. I've actually had a lot
Really?
of women. Yeah, I've had a lot of women to reach out. And, I'm speaking on a panel in Chicago in a few weeks to talk about betting specific, but just women in sports and sort of my angle on it. And I try to take those calls and talk to those women and girls, they're young, as much as possible, because it can be a really daunting, to men and
Mhm.
women, I think, industry TV is, but betting specific, because it is really male dominated. And a lot of people will still ask me to this day. I've been doing betting for what, 6, 7 years. Like, so who feeds you all that information?
Really? Oh,
All the
jeez.
time, Jason. It's the worst. It's
Well,
the
let me
worst.
ask, what was the Vegas experience like? Everybody who's listening, I know, hey, I can handle 3, 4 days in Vegas, a
Yeah.
week, absolute max. You said 40 years?
So I've been doing betting for,
Oh, oh, okay.
basically since I graduated, because it was a year out I started in it. Vegas was a short stint, but I had never even visited before I moved out there.
Wait, you
So I
never went to Vegas like in
never,
college or 21 or
no,
anything? Oh,
nope,
wow. Okay.
never. So I got the call and my agent's like, hey, they want you out in Vegas. And I packed my stuff up in a week and I just moved out to Vegas for the first time, didn't know anybody, nothing. And, I loved it. I lived by the mountains and it's not like I was on the strip,
Oh, you
but
were,
I would,
wait, what is it? What?
Summerlin.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Summerlin. That's a
Yeah.
nice area.
Summerlin's awesome. I mean,
Right.
it was hot as hell, but I had a pool and stuff. But it's funny because when you tell people you moved to Vegas, they're assuming you're, living on the strip.
Yeah.
But my studio was in the Wynn Casino, so I'd walk in. This is my first ever experience of Vegas. And every morning I'd walk in like 8 a.m. for my show, and people are still at the poker tables or maybe just arrived at the
Mm.
poker tables slugging back drinks. And I'm like, wow, Vegas really is what Vegas looks like in the movies.
It's
So
not
I'm
good.
not,
Yeah.
it wasn't a long time I was out there, but I think it was enough for me.
So, like, what happened? They had you doing a show, like talking NFL, baseball, and all that fun stuff.
Everything, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's been really good for me in betting is that I've been able to just cover all of the sports. I always thought I wanted to be a team reporter, but when I went out in Vegas, they basically asked me, obviously, hockey was big out there with the Knights, but UFC was really big.
Mm.
So I dug into UFC pretty often with them, all of the main sports and little F1, WNBA. So
Really?
yeah, with that show with the media, and I think you're probably seeing this with a lot of the sports books, is we knew it was going to consolidate at some point because everyone's trying to copy each other and not everybody has the same reach. So I saw that pretty early with WinBet, the company I was working for. They're like, hey, we have this cool studio. We're going to try these shows and we have
Mm.
all of these ideas. But it was so many things going on at once. And I'm like, you guys should probably focus on your app, right? Like before we
Right,
go
right.
into pushing this. And I think that's a problem they face everywhere. But yeah, so I guess that was the first sort of
Hmm.
daily show I had because I'd been working for MLB Network for a year or so, but that was a few spots a week. So that was the first time I was digging into everything. We had a lot of cool guests come on the show, and it was in Vegas. People could walk by and listen and watch. It was the Blue
Yeah.
Wire studio. I don't know if
I remember. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I heard of it. I've never seen it. But let me ask.
yeah.
So it sounds like they're not just saying, "Hey, NFL, NBA gambling. We want you to do hockey with Belmont Stakes. We want you to." And you're good with that, huh?
Yeah. I
Wow.
don't know if it's because, growing up I played basketball year round. I picked up soccer because my friends played. It was terrible, but it was a social thing for me. I picked up lacrosse just because, everyone was trying that. I loved learning to play new sports. And then
Oh.
as I got older, I just liked learning sports that people didn't really know much about. And maybe
Mm.
that goes back to me just wanting to help people. I don't know. That's what I tell myself, but I've found that's fun. I started working with this company, Next Bets, over the last few months, and they focus solely on the out of the box sport. So it's F1. I did a lot of
Um,
Supercross. I went to my first Supercross event. They do the slapping, the pro slapping leagues.
wait, hold on. Supercross is not motorcycles? Oh, that's motocross.
Motocross, yeah. So Supercross it's AMA, Monster Energy Supercross. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
basically it's like the big one, but it's all under motocross, yeah.
So
But a
wait, people
sport
are
I never thought
betting
I'd learn.
on guy in the slap fights?
Yeah, yeah. I actually
No.
haven't done that
Oh.
yet, but they asked if I would. I'm like, yeah, sure, because I like to learn. It's fun, right? We
But so
as long
those
as
are the sports though where people could take a dive easily because there's not that much. They're not getting paid that much, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
guess
no,
that's true.
I can't believe you're betting on. That's insane. I didn't even know that was like a real sport. So
Well,
is that on
Disney,
TV?
yeah, oh yeah. I think ESPN covers it.
So
But the
that's
thing
where
with
there's yeah. Go
there's
ahead.
money there though with
I
betting.
know.
I mean,
That's
that responsibly, people, if you're
but you
listening.
know that, Claudia, the people betting on that are like total degenerates, like
Oh,
living in like a hoarder setup with no money, and they're betting
Jason,
on
are you
that.
are
Like
you
that.
calling me a
No,
degenerate?
I'm not. But those people are listening for you for those. Yeah, no, that's real
No,
dangerous stuff.
I will say though, with the sports that not everybody's betting, as you know, that's a softer market. Like the
Yes,
WNBA, for
WNBA.
example.
Yeah, that's
I'm getting
legit.
great lines on these player props, even on the side sometimes, because they're not betting it like this
Wait, so are you
standard
betting
stuff.
WNBA nightly?
Not nightly, but when I go on
Okay.
CBS, they'll have me come on it and give some plays, and I'm like, yeah, I'll sprinkle some. I think I swept or I missed like one the other week. I gave out 4 or 5 plays, and it's not like I'm betting the W every day, but again, it's a soft market. I'm
Mm.
capping it just like I would with the NBA. it's the same
Right.
sport. It's just
I know.
different
Yeah.
players.
It's just, no, you're right. I mean, that's where
But the
people could
market's
find,
much
yeah,
softer.
you
Yeah.
could find a bigger edge there for sure.
Right.
It's
Right.
just not as sexy as, hey, let's talk about the Patriots, and their win
Of
total or
course
whatever,
not.
because,
Yeah. But I'm doing all that too. It's just I have, I do lacrosse. I worked with PLL for 2 years as well. So I don't know. It's fun because it's been a challenge for me and I'm reaching different types of audiences.
mm,
And then if somebody does need an expert, I dive into these things. It's not like I'm just
yeah.
reading articles and picking stuff
Mm,
out. I'm trying to really learn the sport, and I don't know. It's been fun for me. Maybe I'm not helping the degenerates out there if they're
uh,
betting the power slap competitions,
It's
but
creepy. So obviously, you got the loser guys in the sewer who are gambling all the time and then hate the fact that you and I are on TV talking about gambling.
yeah.
So they come after me all the time. I block them. I don't really care. But Claudia, I know some women who have talked gambling, and when these guys come after them, they like kind of melt down a little because it's a little tougher when a lot of people are coming after you online. Like, I personally don't care. I've got, like, family. None of this stuff bothers me. But I know some women who have like struggled with it. How are you handling all that stuff when these goons come after you?
Yeah, I when I had my show at Nesson and when I was with MLB Network, I had an Excel spread worksheet. So I would track all of my bets. I'd show you, my unit size and everything. So I was really transparent with it. So if anybody ever called me out, she's not telling the truth or this or that, I'm like, hey, go check my Excel spread worksheet. I don't really care what you think. This is what it is.
Right.
And when they do come at me for stupid little things, thankfully I haven't had much targeting my knowledge or targeting if I know what I'm talking about or not. They'll say something about my looks or just the
Mm,
fact that I'm a woman in general, or that somebody's feeding me all this information because there's no way I would know all of it. So in my mind, I'm just like, oh, thank you. Like, oh, you think just because I'm a girl that I don't know this and you
yeah.
think I'm not smart enough to know all the things that I know. So I try to frame it that way. But like you said, you have a family, you have all these things. I'm, a single 29-year-old who is freelancing. So I'm waiting on
Right.
all those gigs. So if I do a show and I go on social media and somebody says something after I feel like I did great, or maybe I didn't, and that's in my head, and I see somebody
Yeah.
make a comment, then it definitely weighs on me. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. I
Like
no no for
anybody would
sure.
think.
Yeah. No no. I think that's just part of the game, but that's the reality. Like, we've had a lot of gambling people on here, Falika, Adam Chernoff. I'm sure you know all these guys,
Yeah.
but ultimately it comes down to, like, you got to not give a shit when
You
these
have
guys
to.
come after you. The
Yep.
only difference is, like, I do know, single people go back to their house and then at night they're just on their phone scrolling, and all it is just a torrent of anger, and some people don't handle that well. So I'm guessing you're not. Now, you obviously have a good Instagram, but are you on social media a lot? Like, are you doing TikTok, YouTube, all this crap?
I again, from agents and managers, I've gotten a lot that I'm not active enough, and it's
Oh,
because, Jason, if I wasn't in this industry, I don't know if I'd have any social media. I think it's such a distraction. Like when I look at my hours, when I have to be on my phone all day because
right.
I shoot and I edit videos as I'm freelancing. So I'm on my phone all day, and I'll go over and I'll scroll on Instagram, and all it is us looking at people who look as though they're doing better than us, right? And I'll look at women in my field and I'm like, damn, how did they get that job? Or, I'm happy they got that job. I wish I could have got that job. Or this person's getting married. This person's pregnant.
Mm,
I'm still here, freelancing, doing shows in my house. And I think it just forces comparison that I've always had it. My parents never had it. And they were so happy growing up. And I think because of my industry, it's unhealthy in my mind. So like I tried the TikTok and then you don't get enough views and it doesn't make sense because I have the followers, but the views aren't there. And then you have to try and nail down the algorithm. And it's like,
it's a lot of
go
work.
outside, people.
Yeah.
Like go outside and experience the world. And so I'll post and then I just get off. Like I try not to
Yeah.
scroll because it's just mind numbing and usually don't feel great, right? If you
No.
spend you never feel good after scrolling on
No.
Instagram or TikTok ever.
So what do you do?
Oh man, I'm busy. I'm busy. I started an app with my sister, a fitness app actually. So we're
Oh,
going through the investor process right now. It's been 5 years in the making. So as I've been trying to get into the TV industry, I was trying to build that up and we're really happy with it, but that's nonstop. So as they say, you're 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5, but our dev team's in Pakistan. So really I'm up at all hours doing that. I'm a workout fiend, so I work out whenever I can. I try to cook. Lots of friends. I've been going nonstop for the last like 3 months. That's why I tell
ooh,
you we were supposed to do this. I'm like, sorry, I'm in Toronto. Sorry, I'm in New York. Sorry, I'm at
yeah.
the Ortiz Fund. But I'm young. I'm going to do it now before I have a family and hopefully land another full time gig.
So I guess we'll fast forward to NFL since everybody loves it. First I'll start. We could start with Belichick because he was a Patriots guy. I don't know if you saw the story that all these morons, as soon as the Jordan Hudson stuff came out, they decided we're going to bet the Tar Heels under win total just because this girl's a distraction. Any thoughts? And again, I don't know the UNC depth chart. I've seen the schedule, but we don't have lines for the whole season. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious your thoughts on the Patriots and Belichick. Sorry, the Tar Heels and Belichick.
Yeah, it's and just on the Belichick side of things, and of course I've talked about this so much on the Boston sports shows here, but it's so disappointing. And they've said his family members are so sad to see that his legacy, of course, is not being torn down by this, but people keep saying his legacy is sort of being tarnished because here he was like a god. Of course, there were some issues with the Brady contracts and all that, but one of the greatest coaches of all time, right? If he went back to the NFL, could have broken Don Shula's record. That's all we really talked about when it came to
Right.
Bill. And then he went to UNC, and okay, this is cool. It's a new chapter for him. And when's the last time we really heard about anything, to your point,
Mm.
about the UNC depth chart? Half of the people don't even know the quarterback. Nobody knows any of the receivers. All
Right,
we've
right, right.
heard about is his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. And I'm sure in his mind, that doesn't sit well with him either. So on the football side of things, again, greatest coach of all time. He's dealt with everything. Everybody keeps saying, yeah, is he really going to go and sit on the couches and recruit these players and do this and that? I don't know if he's going to have to beg a lot of players to
Right.
come. Maybe the Jordan Hudson thing will off-put some people. I don't know about that. Everybody's goal is to get to the NFL. I think he
Yeah.
knows a few people to get you there. I think he has the skills and is going to bring in the staff to help players develop. And if they go to UNC, I don't think they're going to regret it. But on the Jordan Hudson side of things, yeah, it's disappointing for me because I grew up with Belichick and Brady, and Jordan Hudson's younger than me. I actually saw her at a club. Not that I go to clubs, but I did see her at the club a few months ago. And I was
Really?
like,
With
oh,
Belichick?
no, no, no.
Oh,
Belichick wasn't there. If Belichick was there, that would be
yeah,
a
that would
red
be.
flag. She looks so young though, Jason. She looks
Well, that's the
like
thing. So she's your age, basically.
no,
And
no.
what
She's
if it,
24. I'm 29.
come on, give me a break.
Isn't
That's
she 20?
similar.
No, it's
If you
not.
if people saw both of you, they wouldn't really know the age difference. But here's the thing:
No.
it would be the equivalent of one of your friends being like, "Hey, Claudia, I'm dating Bill Belichick,"
Oh,
and
I
it would
know.
that would be a
Imagine her
little
dad.
that would be
I,
well, her dad. I'm sure you've read the stories is a little bit different,
oh, well.
which I think kind of I don't want to say stuff because like
I hear you.
anyways, but you know what I'm talking about. Like in the Boston
Yeah.
area, it's weird.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm all in on the over. I mean, again, you don't even need to know the depth chart. Look at the schedule. I think they're
Yes.
going to be favored in like at least 9 games. And
Mm-hmm.
there's really, other than the Clemson game, which is bookended by buys,
Yeah.
like they should be, barring massive injury, they should be
Yeah.
fine. I think this is all like just misdirection. And anytime the masses go one way, you just go the other.
Mm-hmm.
What about the Patriots with Drake May? Are you as bullish as many are?
Yeah, man. I was so excited. I was really worried about them putting him in last season just because of our O line situation.
Mm,
His blind side was never protected. Our depth chart in the left tackle in general was just awful. Right tackle, we dealt with a lot of issues as well. And he didn't have a real receiving core. A
yeah.
lot of the draft guys were sort of duds, and the veteran guys weren't showing up well. Our backfield sort of fell apart as well. Ramondre Stevenson didn't step up as he did the year prior. So the fact that he has Diggs, whether or not people keep having this discussion, is he a true number one? He's a number one when you look at what Drake May had last season, right? Kyle Williams, I think, is going to be a great option. You have Travion Henderson out of the backfield who can catch passes as well. And then they retain their two tight ends in Hooper as well and Hunter Henry. So you have so many options for Drake May. I always believed in Drake May's talent. I think he has a great arm. I think he's accurate. Of course, the legs were a huge thing. My biggest fear, and the reason I didn't want them to play him last year, was just because when he takes off running,
Mm.
he's going to have to do that too often. He's going to get injured. Luckily, he didn't. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen this season. But they spent the most money in the offseason for a reason, to get that protection, to beef up the defense, which I'm a little worried about, the linebacker depth, but I still think they'll be fine. There's really no excuse. You look at 4 wins the last 2 seasons, there's really no excuse that they can't double that number. They should
Yeah.
get at least 8 wins because of all the pieces they brought in, because the talent that Drake May has. And I mean, they were a year late on Vrabel, but they finally brought him.
So what do you see yourself doing? I don't know, 20 years from now? Are you still doing gambling? Are you at a network? Have you moved on developing apps? What do you see your ideal future?
Yeah. Hopefully my app is launched and we're actually working with a lot of teams and high schools and trainers. I'd love to do that, part of that. My passion project, but I'd love to have my own show and sort of do something like this where it's really laid back and we talk sports, we talk pop culture, we do talk betting. I've found, though, that a lot of the networks I'm talking to now are a little hesitant because I'm seen as the betting girl now to hire me as just a traditional reporter or a traditional host. When it's like, and this, betting is just a layer of sports analytics and sports analysis, right? I couldn't talk about all of these sports in a betting sense if I didn't understand them through and through. And hopefully people will understand that as betting becomes more of a norm. But I'd love to be part of a show that's not just betting focused. It's
Right.
everything, and I can
And
have
and
great guests come on, and yeah.
so they're not really giving you that chance because you're pigeonholed as, oh, that's the betting girl.
Yeah, and it stinks because I love that people do realize I understand the betting market well, and you can call me an expert in it. I love that because I've worked hard for it, but that doesn't mean I can't be a traditional reporter as well.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, congrats on all your success. Sounds like a lot of things ahead.
thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.